Welcome to the ZimmCast, a program dedicated to bringing you what's new in agricultural marketing. The ZimmCast is the official podcast of AgWired and hosted by Chuck and Cindy Zimmerman.
Hello and welcome to the ZimmCast. I'm Chuck Zimmerman.
And I'm Cindy Zimmerman, joining Chuck this time because we wanted to talk about some of the recent decisions that we've made regarding our company and what we're going to do here in the future.
We've been getting notices and calls and emails kind of thinking we're just completely retiring here when that's not exactly it. We're just retiring from the road.
Well, we do have a couple more trips planned this year. Actually, we've got 3 in 1 week coming up in July. But right now, we're kind of taking it easy and kind of enjoying what it will be like to not travel too much. Because really, it's travel that we want to leave behind. And that is the main part of our business. That's what we've been doing for over 20 years now. And as a matter of fact, it's our 20th anniversary with Flickr is next month in June 2005. We have 980 photo albums in Flickr. And I forgot, how many photos do we have?
224,000 and plus. And every one of those albums is from a different event, whether that's a conference or it could even be...
Well, we did field days and so, we wanted to figure out how much travel we had done over the last 20 years. Because sometimes it seems like we don't travel any more than anybody else does because we see everybody else at these conferences that we go to. Everybody doesn't go to every conference like we had been doing. So I figured out of the 980, we had some duplicates where we would have multiple albums for one event. Like, for instance, for the National Ethanol Conference, we'd have 2 different photo albums, one for their golf tournament and one for their regular conference. So I've averaged in, assuming that, we had some duplicates, and we also had a couple of personal albums in there in the very beginning when we first started in June 2005. And so I figured, okay, well, let's make it 900 there. So 900 photo albums over the course of 20 years averages out to 45 trips a year, each of those photo albums.
Because we had several years when we were 60 plus.
Right.
And of late, it's been a little bit lower, maybe about 24 last year or so.
Yeah, right. But and of course we were very fortunate to have there during our most busy years. We were very fortunate to have a lot of people who did help us with these events. We went to probably, between the two of us, either one or both of us went to all of those events. Almost all of them. But we did have a couple of really good people who worked for us, like Joanna Schrader and Jamie, of course, and Jamie Johansson. John Davis was another one, and we had lots of people over the years. We don't want to... Well, you can start naming them off, but those 3 in particular, I know especially that we would send them to events if we couldn't be there. But we did have a lot of people working for us over the years.
And not all the travel we did involved a photo album. There's work that we did, whether it's been out in cotton fields for, say, BASF or others, where we were just literally creating content for them for their own either internal purposes or what have you. So it's been a lot. And when you talk about seeing people a lot, there are certain people we'll see several times a year, but the vast majority don't see us at every single one of them. So after 20 years plus doing this, you get to be friends with a lot of these people too. And because you're there 3-4 days or longer if it was like an IFAJ trip or something like that with farm tours. And it's one of those things. We love the folks that we've worked with, and I hope that we've had an opportunity to help others, like the ones that we've got other names we could tell you who have written on AgWired quite a bit over a number of years. In fact, I think there's about 28 people who have written on this website over the time we've been doing this for over 20 years.
A lot of them are very active in the industry. We had a lot of interns early on in the first few years, and one of our first interns was Amanda Knowles, who is now Amanda Radke, and she is very active and has her own podcast and very well known in the ag community. And
in addition to that, Lizzie Schultz worked for us for a while, and some of the other ones that kind of pop up that are out in the industry right now, Megan Grebner with Brownfield Network and Andy Vance. There's just probably going on 20-something people that have been editors for AgWired at one point or another.
Definitely photographers as well. When I look at us retiring from travel, that's going to mean we're not going to add much more to our photo albums after the end of this year. And there are a lot of photos in there and a lot of photo albums. And, some of the events that we've covered over the years, multiple. I think the one that we've got the most albums from every year would be Ag Media Summit. That's one I think that we started early on. So we have one from every year starting in 2005. But also, we have, of course, Commodity Classic and the Cattlemen's Meeting and National Ethanol Conference and Biodiesel, which is now Clean Fuels, was one of our early events that we would go to at Southern Peanut Growers Conference. But when I look at those, I always get frustrated because I feel like I wish there was something that we could do with all these photos besides just leave them there. I don't know what we're going to end up doing with them.
And when you look at our photo albums, let's look at just the views of all of the photos. It's 43,521,000 right now, total views of those photos. So a lot of people see these, they use them however they want. I see them anything from magazines to social media, and that was our plan at the beginning, was to make them available for editors or other people, even some of our customers that want to use those. So I think it's a pretty big number.
But the point is that we have all these photos, and we're not going to probably be adding to them anymore, and they're sitting in Flickr, and we're just wondering, we're looking for suggestions.
Although if
anybody has any ideas.
Add up every day.
Sure. People are constantly looking at it. You do searches because they've got tags on them. They have tags. Started originally trying to put, descriptions on every single picture, but then we stopped doing that very quickly because when we have 500 photos from an event, you don't want to get through and totally do all of them.
Yeah.
But they do all have tags on them. They do all
ridiculous.
have generic tags on them, at least for the for whatever event we were at, for whatever organization we were working for, or whatever, or specific tags like ethanol or corn or whatever. So they're easy to search, but we're just not sure what's going to happen to those, and we're looking for suggestions there. And that's just one of the things that's going to continue to exist even after we stop traveling.
And we are going to be adding to it. As you said, we've got a couple of more events here this year. Just in July, for example, we've got Tech Hub Live in Des Moines, Southern Peanut Growers Conference in Panama City, Florida, and Ag Media Summit in Rogers, Arkansas. So we're pretty much back-to-back on those, but then we still have a couple after that, like the ACE annual meeting.
Right,
and then
that's
we've also got the Ag Gateway annual meeting. So, right. We've still got a little bit further to go, for sure.
We have a few more. But we're kind of getting back to our roots, which is really when we started our company, what we wanted to do was distribute news releases with audio, especially because as broadcasters, we worked for Brownfield Network before we started our business. And one of the frustrations to me of being a farm broadcaster and getting a press release was, okay, of course I want to do an interview on this and a call and want to do an interview, and that person's out of the country, or that person's not available, or it takes like, a week to set it up, and I want it now. So the idea was to have interviews and audio to go out with the press releases and called talking news releases. That's what we started 20 years ago. And so that is going to continue. And if you want to have, we don't always attach audio interviews to the news releases we send out, but you can do that.
Yes, I mean, this is one of the things we want people to know, if they don't already, that, when we do an audio interview that you want done, say, with a CEO or whoever's quoted in the news release, we'll produce it, publish it, and that's no extra cost for sending your news release.
Yeah, that's right. And you can send us the audio, or we'll do it for you. And Chuck will tell you how you can send your news release, right? It's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You just go to agnewswire.com, and there's a little drop down at the top that says send a release, and there's a little form that we created for credit cards, because that became kind of the things people wanted. I guess made it easier for them instead of me sending them invoices, which we will still do if you would like us to do it.
But if you do want an audio component to that, or anything else, we also add, if you want to have a photo, of course, or any kind of image attached to it, you can send multimedia content along with it. And we have about 1,500 or so subscribers to our Ag Newswire
Ag journalist list. Although they're not.
Well, not everybody's all ag journalists. We do have a pretty diverse list of
farm broadcasters, publication editors, social media producers, and I mean, there's a whole list of these people that need this kind of content.
I mean, even we have lots of people. Of course, we have ag organizations and people who are communications directors. If they do newsletters, they can use our content for that. So we do send this to a pretty wide audience that includes not just journalists, but also people who are interested in the content beyond that. And
we supply some statistics for the news release that is sent, because we use Constant Contact for that, for things like opens and click rates. And when it comes to the audio, we use another service for that, but we can tell you how many downloads that audio file has, for example. So that's good to have when you're trying to put together a report for, say, the boss, that we sent this release out with. We have at least one good example, if you'd like to hear it, that we want to add before we close here, because it's one that we just did just a couple days ago. One of our clients that we do a lot of work for, and especially in the ag tech field, is Ag Tech PR and Jennifer Goldston, and she frequently has us do interviews with her press release clients. And one of the examples that I wanted to include is the one we just did for power pollen. And I'm sure this is something that is done a lot of places, but I was amazed by the technology of being able to collect and preserve, and then, being able to distribute pollen on demand. I thought that was a pretty cool technology and a really interesting interview. So this is Jason Cope, the Chief Intellectual Property Officer for Power Pollen. First of all, Jason, if you would, just tell us about Power Pollen. What is it? What do you do?
Power Pollen's an Iowa-based ag tech company, and we offer a breakthrough scalable technology to collect, preserve, and apply pollen on demand. What this process does is it really improves the productivity, profitability, and sustainability of modern ag practices.
All right. Well, Power Pollen is recognized as the first company to broadly patent pollination technology for large-scale agriculture. So, can you share with us what it means for the industry to have foundational patents in this space, and how it positions Power Pollen as a leader in pollination innovation?
Power Pollen started with the concept that if we could actually preserve pollen, particularly from row crops, that there was so much more value to be realized in industry from the flexibility it would give you. So if you look back on the 10-year history of Power Pollen, really started with intellectual property being the foundation. What that means essentially is as we made breakthrough discoveries for how to preserve pollen and how to handle pollen, we actually patented those processes and those methods. So if you fast forward to today, I mentioned the scaled breakthrough technology to collect, preserve, and apply. What we're actually doing is collecting pollen in mass, storing it, and then going back out and reapplying it to the female parts of the plant when it's in its best state for reproducibility. Through that, we're able to increase yield, increase purity, deliver traits on demand. There's all sorts of things you can do. But going back to the root of your question, really at the end of the day, Power Pollen is an IP company because really that's our foundation. We're a licensing company, so we work with seed producers and seed companies to really license our technology to make them better at what they do.
So, what were the unique technical and scientific breakthroughs that allowed Power Pollen to secure the first patents that cover intentional pollination, pollen preservation, and on-demand application in grain crops?
A very good example is a patent we recently had granted. Title of the patent is pollen preservation method, which doesn't really tell you a lot. But if you look at the details of what's behind that patent, we actually learned through our studies that when people have attempted to store pollen, it degrades very quickly and the viability is lost. And so we started looking at what causes that, and we learned that as pollen breaks down, as it starts to die, it actually, its contents, its cell wall breaks down, and its contents infect other healthy grains of pollen. So we theorized and proved that if we separate grains of pollen during storage, we're able to store them for a much longer period of time. And essentially, what we've done is we've use just simple physical powders to keep the pollen grains separated from one another, which makes for a very easy and scalable storage, which is also a very important part of our process. If it took a lot of really expensive instrumentation to make this process work, you're less likely to be able to scale it. So we've really focused on making this process one that's easy to use so it can be leveraged at great scale.
Well, how does this patented technology change the traditional approach to pollination in crops like corn and rice? And what are the most significant benefits for farmers and seed producers?
Well, if you look at the way it was done prior to now, pollination was actually just left to chance. So you had to have the right breeze come through when both the male and female were ready to get the pollen to go to where it needed to go. If you look at our process and what it really enables a seed company or a grower to do is collect the pollen and hold it until that female is perfect for pollinating. Now, why would you want to do that would be the question. You're going to maximize your yield by pollinating when the female is in its most fertile state. You're going to be able to increase the purity of the product that you're actually trying to develop. In the case of seed companies, of course, high purity in the seed they sell is of critical importance. And maybe what's becoming the most important aspect of our technology is you're able to steer around environmental challenges. So extreme heat, poor weather, all these things that impact natural pollination severely. Now you don't have to worry about it anymore because you have your pollen stored and you're ready to apply on demand when the female's in the best state for application.
You mentioned that Power Pollen is an intellectual property company. What role has intellectual property played in your strategy and growth, and how does this latest patent strengthen your leadership in pollination technology?
For Power Pollen, we realized there was a white space that was available in pollination just because of the lack of discoveries that had been made in terms of how to store pollen and how to handle pollen. So we knew very quickly going into this that if we could really focus on key enablers in the pollination space and patent those, that we would have the opportunity to build out a very meaningful technology. Present day, we have right at about 70 granted patents around the world. If you look at the nature of those patents, it supports collection, preservation, and application of pollen, as well as ways to really improve some of the aspects of output. The value of output, I think, would be the best way to put it. So strategically, we knew that if we own the IP, it would give us the opportunity to work first with seed companies to help with their processes, reduce their cost of goods, increase the reliability of their agricultural systems. But the long look is really to help the farmer to be more profitable, to be able to steer around environmental risks, and to be, frankly, more flexible in what they can produce at the end of the day.
Well, with Power Pollen holding these foundational patents for pollination technology, how do you see this influencing future research, collaboration, and competition in the ag tech sector?
Well, it's certainly been a benefit for Power Pollen when it comes to collaboration, just because some of the key aspects of what we've discovered are certainly enabling. So for us, it's generating additional opportunities to have meaningful partnerships. And really, if you look at our vision at the end of the day, it's to feed the world more reliably. And there are a lot of companies that certainly have that on their bucket list, if you will, of things to do. But, what I would tell you about Power Pollen is the people that work there just really are driven by that. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's what makes you passionate about what you do. And there's no greater way, in my opinion, to really help feed the world in a reliable way than to make sure pollination is occurring very reliably.
Well, as we look ahead, what are the biggest technical or commercial challenges that Power Pollen faces, and how do you envision your technology shaping the future of crop production globally?
So for Power Pollen right now, we're really focused on commercial scaling. As you can imagine, we've gone through the process of actually achieving the innovations, but now unless you can do it at a huge commercial scale, it's less meaningful. This year, we're going to be in operation with 3 different seed companies on thousands of acres, actually doing this pollination process. And our commercial scaling will really double to triple year over year as we go forward, just because of the long felt need for the technology. If you look at the future, what I would tell you is I strongly believe there's going to come a day when people will reflect and say, remember when we used to just leave pollination to chance and we didn't have the ability to collect and store pollen? Remember how much risk we had? Remember how much loss of product we had? Why did we ever do it that way? So I really think this ability to store pollen and then apply pollen on demand will become the foundation for the most major crops in the world in terms of reliable production.
That's all the specific questions I have, Jason. Anything else you want to add?
Well, keep your eye on Power Pollen. We're going to continue to scale. We're operating with many of the major seed companies in the U.S. We have activities going on worldwide, and it's a great place to work. A lot of future innovation in the pipeline right now as we continue to build out the technology. And people would like more information on Power Pollen, I'd encourage them to look at www.powerpollen.com.
All right. Thank you very much. Once again, Jason Cope, Chief Intellectual Property Officer for Power Pollen. I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
So that's an example of an interview that was requested to be included with the news release, and we can do it for you too.
I also wanted to point out that we are going to continue to do podcasts like this one, the ZimmCast, that we've been doing since 2005, as well as the Ethanol Report we've been doing since 2008. And we're still doing the Water for Food podcast. And if anybody wants a podcast done, we can do that. Right, dear?
Yes, all you have to do is give us a call, and we'd be happy to help you in any way that we can. So keep ZimmComm in your plans. And that's the ZimmCast for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the ZimmCast, the official podcast of AgWired. Check us out at www.agwired.com to find out what's new in agricultural marketing.